Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's great to see so many friends here. Let me start by thanking to President Ilves. He told me before the dinner that he wrote his speech in the airplane coming to Berlin, and I think it demonstrates how much he understands the spirit of Central and Eastern Europe and the Czechs in particular. Also, this evening is special to me personally. I am someone who was born in August 1961, when the Berlin Wall was built. And on November the 9th, I left the communist jail in Prague on the same day when the wall was starting to fall down, to join my friends, including Vaclav Havel, to start to work at the magic lantern. Vaclav Havel sends you his greetings as well as regrets. It's not the political illness, it just needs to survive those days, to be present in Prague early next week, because we have our celebration, and maybe you noticed that we still have some homeworks at homes, and those are the priorities. And he asked me to read his message here today. I just look into that message, and there is nothing about the Czechs, and that's a typical Havel, so I think he can perfectly accept this award also on the behalf of Slovak people, Fred, so don't be afraid. Dear Madam Secretary, dear Minister Westerwelle, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to address you in this manner, at least, and to apologize for not being with you in person today. Judging by the number of invitations, interviews, and debates, there is a great interest in the 20th anniversary of the historic social changes. This interest, in my opinion, is amplified by the fact that the atmosphere in the world at the current time is a far cry from euphoria we experienced in those days. But even at that time, it was evident that the enthusiasm could not last long, and we ourselves were at pains to transform it rapidly into functioning democracy and the rule of law. In spite of the fact that we, too, were confronted with the rule of all revolutions, which states that what one does not manage to achieve in the first weeks or months will never be achieved, we did, in fact, manage to lay the foundations for civic freedoms, democracy, and the rule of law. We have a developing civil society, we have free media, free elections, a functioning judiciary, and we alone are responsible for all the things we do not like. We are members of all the respected international institutions, in particular NATO and the European Union. I would be amazed if, from time to time, someone in the West did not regret the eastward expansion of those organizations. However, I would like to assure everyone that if the European and Atlantic organizations and the zone had not opened up to the countries of Central and Eastern Europe in the 90s, we would probably be in a much more complicated and disadvantageous situation and exposed to graver dangers. Following the fall of totalitarianism and dissolution of the Warsaw Pact, the new democracies represented a political fragile space that needed to be filled rapidly. And had the post-communist countries not been drawn into transatlantic ties and the process of the European unification, the nationalism that were never far away in this part of Europe could now hold sway here. That all represented an enormous contribution to us by the West. And what do we have that could benefit the West? It is above all our first-hand experience of a totalitarian regime, of its subtle methods of manipulation, of the fear it endangers and which pervades society. No one on this planet can say that totalitarianism does not concern them. No one can be sure they will not succumb to it. No society is entirely immune to it. At a time of globalization, at a time when everyone and everything is interlinked, scope for the spread of demagogy is actually even more of a risk than ever. And the more sophisticated it is, the more difficult it is to identify in time. And so even minor concessions, albeit made with the good intentions, can have grievous consequences in the future. And Central and Eastern Europe, in particular, have valuable experience of the phenomena of totalitarianism and demagogy. Initially, a small section of society fell prey to Nazism and communism, but it turned out to be sufficient for society as a whole to succumb to it eventually. Both Nazism and communism were unprecedented in history, and there was no previous experience of what their ideology could give rise to. So one cannot rule out the possibility that if humanity was imperiled by a new totalitarianism, one that was unlike the two previous ones, it might be scarcely recognizable as one at first and even appear attractive to some, but its consequences could be unforeseeable. Nevertheless, I firmly believe that thanks to the common endeavors of all of us, the values we share will never again be imperiled, but, on the other hand, or contrary, will be enhanced and proliferate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you sincerely for the momentous award I am receiving from you, as well as for your attention. Yours, Vaclav Havel.